What is going on, 5'9" gamers? My name is Vilify, and today we're going to be going ahead and taking a look at some of the best aging units here in Dokkan Battle. Before we go ahead and get into this video, don't forget to leave a like if you do find yourself enjoying it, and subscribe if you are new and want to keep up with everything that we are doing over here on the 5'9" Gaming mobile channel. Now, I can't just do this list on my own, so today I have a guest with me. His name is Gale Riot. How are you doing today, Gale?
Hello, everybody. Looking forward to this one. I'm pretty sure we may most likely missed out on some units, considering, you know, Dokkan's massive now with how many units there are. But I think we've consolidated a really good list here. I think we've looked at everything. We've looked at a lot of units that have, you know, still lived up to their abilities and capabilities in various events such as STR, Red Zone, and stuff like that. And hopefully this list is pretty accurate.
Yeah, you mentioned the biggest problem with making this list, and it's those two words, right? Red Zone. It just makes everything so tricky, and it's like, you know, do you want to go from the perspective that only the red zone exists, so if they're not usable in the red zone, did they age well, or do you want to take it from the bigger picture where it's like you can use them in the Vegeta event, the Goku event, Super Battle Road, ESBR, and all that? But nonetheless, we prevail over here. We're going to be strong and get through this. Go ahead and give you guys a list of the units that we thought aged the best. So let's go ahead and start it off. We decided to break this into tiers rather than doing a top 10 because we just could not figure out like a good order. So let's start off with our B tier, and we'll go ahead and break down each unit one by one. The first unit we had is a unit that ended up making Red Zone Broly the way he is, and that's Tech Caulifla with her dodge against Pure Saiyans and Universal Survival Saga enemies. What do you think, Gale?
Yeah, I mean, we've known this, that Tech Caulifla is the reason why dodge has been disabled as of late, and or you can make an argument for also STR UI Goku and AGL UI Goku being a good reason for that as well. But Tech Caulifla, I mean, there's a reason why Broly, a Pure Saiyan, disabled dodge, because they knew that we would have cheesed the event with Tech Caulifla, and especially running double Tech Caulifla, because that's what happened last year with the God event. The God event was where they first saw us literally just using Tech Caulifla. I mean, I'm pretty sure if you look at everybody's clearer, you know, records, basically, they all have Tech Caulifla for the most part. I would assume some people would have tried doing it without Tech Caulifla, and there may be many runs that do that, but for the most part you'd see every God event being beaten with a Tech Caulifla on the team, and that's the reason why we see Broly disabling dodge entirely. So while Tech Caulifla in that sense has, you know, revolutionized the game in a way, she's also aged as a result in that regard. But that doesn't mean that whenever she can be utilized, be it in SBR stages or wherever, she's going to be phenomenal. So we had to put Tech Caulifla in. It's just a shame that technically the dodging kind of canceled her whole kit out effectively, but right. She's still in B for that reason.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of said everything right, but it's like every no item run that I did for the God event before like the 7-year anniversary and 200% leader skills and all that, every single video I'm pretty sure had Tech Caulifla in it. So it's just, I think it was a development miss where they were just like, oh, we have this unit that dodges Universal Survival Saga enemies, and we didn't like disable them or think about that. So like Gale said, Tech Caulifla kind of rounding or starting off our B tier. Now, going into another unit from the Universal Survival Saga, we have our boy AGL Fit Buu. Now, AGL Fit Buu, like Tech Caulifla, has a lot of dodging, but also has the massive buffs that he gets for the first, I think it's 8 turns. He gets, like, his started turn defense is like 330,000 with a dodge chance. He can stun. He is an ace in Super Battle Road still. He's usable in the God event. It's the red zone is where he's kind of lax, and it's like the same thing with long content, but you do have to give credit to a possible slot 1 unit in the difficult content like ESBR and SBR and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. I think for a unit that's about to become, oh well, he's just over 2 years old now on the Japanese server, going to be 2 years old on the global version soon. He's still extremely usable on the categories he's on, and he's got a decent chunk of categories. He's not on just like 6 or 7 categories. I think he's on a total of like 10 or 12 categories. And especially on a Buu team, right, you'll be able to use him still to this day for short form content, and arguably in certain situations you could run him in some other content as well, like Battlefield and stuff. And if you can, you know, finish off Infinite Dragon Ball history really quickly, which I doubt you will, but you know, he's usable there as well. So I think in general you could find yourself with a really solid unit here.
Yeah, you mentioned it well. I just went ahead and checked in the Dokkan box. He has 10 categories. So you'd think a unit like a Fit Majin Buu from the Universal Survival Saga would be like on Universe 7, like Majin Power and stuff like that, but he's on way more than just that. So great unit. It's good that, you know, a Buu has a Dokkan Awakening that really is solid, because sometimes Buu units get the short end of the stick with all their healing and they don't really get the defense, but this unit has that, so it's good. So let's go ahead and round out our B tier. We have a unit that has aged pretty well here, as the theme of this video is. We have STR Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta. The way to put this up quickly is Super Saiyan, or damage reduction that Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta has. It's just not going to age, right?
Exactly. I think, you know, he might have aged stats-wise and all that. He's really, really old. His EZA is 4 years old, or nearly to become 4 years old. And that says a lot about this guy. And even before his EZA, he was still really, really good because he had that damage reduction from the get-go. It's just a shame that that damage reduction is limited to 10 turns only, right, post his EZA. And that's the only reason why we wouldn't place him any higher than B tier. That being said, still a great unit and will be utilized in every SBR stage that he can be used in. So 100% great unit.
Personal experience, the Super Saiyan 3 ESBR stage gave me a lot of trouble because I was missing like the Xeno Goku and the Xeno Vegeta, and the physical Super Saiyan 3 Goku that came out earlier this last year, or late last year. STR Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta was a staple on that team, right? And like you said, his EZA is almost 4 years old. So yeah, great unit. Let's go ahead and move on to the A tier. So, starting with our A tier, we have a unit that's almost infamous at this point, just for how much they were talked about during their time. They were the best unit in the game for quite a long time. A lot of people do not like these two. If these two isn't a dead giveaway, we'll go ahead and tell you. It is LR, Kale, and Caulifla. You want to take this one away, Gale?
Yeah, of course I can. Now, this is the unit that basically broke Dokkan, right? With the whole super attack issues and everything and being stronger than it should have been and stuff like that. It was ridiculous. But that doesn't change the fact that these guys, even after whatever issues there were that got fixed, bugs and everything, they're still phenomenal. They stack defense, so that means in long events you are not going to run into any issues with these guys. They also have a chance to evade as well when they perform more and more attacks as well, right?
And
up to 66%. And it builds up as well, exactly. So you're gonna be you're not gonna have any issues with these guys. Yes, they also face a similar issue again to Tech Caulifla, is that now with stages disabling dodge, that part of their passive is effectively cut away, right? But that doesn't change, again, the fact that they have, you know, a chance to launch additional super attacks as well, when, or not a chance, they launch an additional super attack when there's a universe survival saga or pure Saiyan category enemy, and the latter is ever present, right? You're gonna see that happen more and more. And generally as well, if you give them additionals, you're getting basically 3 stacks per turn effectively if you get 3 super attacks off. Again, long events, they're going to be kings, and, well, I should say in this situation, queens of the event. So yeah, I think honestly they're still good. I think of course you could make an argument that maybe their attack has aged a little bit, but I still think if you're getting 3 super attacks off per turn, assuming you manage to proc that hidden potential system super attack, you're going to be good.
Yeah, and one thing, like, it's a part of how a unit ages is also like the people around them, right? And they got just another ace of a partner with the Tech, Kale, and Caulifla. We mentioned this in the red zone. It's tough with them in the red zone, but we know that Tech, Kale, and Caulifla have a really good active skill when they fuse into Kefla, and you know, it gives them a nice heal. And they've been building up alongside the LR, Kale, and Caulifla. So, you know, you find yourself with a rotation of just 2 stacked up units. You put the AGL, Caulifla, Kale, and Caulifla in slot 1 with all their defense. Then you get the attack from the Tech Kefla and all that fun stuff. So, you know, have it that Dokkan Fest and the kind of the Universe 6 revamp that we had along with the physical Kefla EZA has kind of helped them look a little bit better as time has gone on. So that was the first unit in our A tier. The next unit in our A tier is another long event ace. This guy has one of the better leader skills in the game to this day. It's not 200%, but you still see plenty of him on the friends list, and that is because he leads the Kamehameha category. Let's give it up for AGL Gohan, the LR AGL Gohan at that. Now, his active skill transformation, we won't talk about that, but we will talk about how his defense, you know, you can easily get him to over 1 million defense in long events, and he's untouchable and all that fun stuff. What else do you want to talk about with this AGL Gohan, Gale?
I think it's only until recently where he's aged. I know, you know, we have the likes of Truth and a couple of others also saying, you know, that he has aged a bit, and I do agree. I think he has aged a bit, especially with the appearance of the red zone, right? But that doesn't change the fact that until the red zone in any long form content, you would run him, and you still will. If there was a legendary event that comes up again in the next couple of months, let's say a Frieza version or a Cell version or whatever, you're gonna have this guy on the team no matter what. And especially with his EZA just on the horizon, he's going to become even more of a monster. Now, of course, we don't necessarily want to take into account, you know, oh, their EZA is going to come soon and stuff. But even without his EZA, I think he's still great. It's just his attack, of course, is aged a bit. But if you're trying to run him in an event, you're not gonna go for attack anyways. It's the whole sort of allure of the hybrid Saints team is they're going to be slow in terms of their attack, but their defense is going to be skyrocketing every single turn, right? So he fits directly into that mindset of that team. Again, he has aged a bit, not saying he hasn't, but that's why he's an A. He would have been an S without the red zone, I would say. So that's how I feel about him.
Yeah, and you know, it's also it's kind of tough, like you said, because with SPR and ESPR, he can definitely get caught. Like, he is kind of a unit that you have to mask with, like, putting him where there's one hit or using an item. So I guess that is one thing that you could say, like, oh, maybe this guy is a B tier aging unit, but we do think that the value of the long events, which seems to be the most popular form of difficult content that they like to do, and even the red zone, if you guys don't know, is long content. You know, there's really no red zone stage that you're doing in 2 turns. So if you can manage to mask his problems, right, he's very usable.
And I think that we have to also acknowledge that, you know, yes, dodge is such a significant part of the game for sure, but with them disabling dodge, I feel like it's more important. And this is me sounding like a little bit of a defense fanboy basically at this point. I'm becoming Minato slowly but surely here.
That's the whole community, man. Yeah, it's I mean, but it makes sense, right?
It makes sense because you want to have as much defense as possible, because if you get caught out, at least you'll have to be able to defend it, whereas a dodging unit might not be able to do the same, right? Because if they don't stack the defense necessarily just like some other units do, apart from like Kale and Khalifa, for example, right? So in that regards, I will still maintain like Gohan is still good in that regards for sure.
Right. So, yeah, I think that's enough about our boy AGL Gohan. I think we're both in agreement here that he is super good, but there are some massive drawbacks to him. But I think just in the grand scheme of aging, I think he has done all right. So let's go ahead and move on to our last unit in the A tier. This is right before the absolute best of the best. We got our boy AGL Super Vegito. Now, there's a lot of AGL units on this now that I'm looking. It's just, I guess AGL units, they just seem to like giving a lot of buffs. But we said AGL Super Vegito. Now, with AGL Super Vegito, he is kind of like an Ultra Instinct character, and not the sense that he dodges, but you do have to kind of put him in a gambling spot where it's like, yeah, he's not going to take anything from a normal, but if you do get hit with that super, your day is done, right? So it's tough, but I think Gale made a good point when we were kind of making this list. I'll let him say it because it was his idea, but it has to do with the team that you build him around.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to be running him alongside other fusions as well, and in particular, in this case, I'm going to talk about Tech Vegeta and STR Super Vegito. They both have the ability to see super attacks once they, of course, fuse, right? You will be able to see super attacks much more easily. And I know his kid as well, that is to say AGL Super Vegito, can also see super attacks, but he can only steal under a certain amount of HP, which is 40%, which is really low, by the way. I wish they would, I wish it was a lot higher. If it was like under 70% HP, this guy would be unbelievably good. But because you can see the super attacks now, and, you know, I would argue to say that, and I think everybody agrees with me on this one, that is one of the most powerful effects in the game, pretty much, right? Outside of, like, just guarding every single turn forever. And that'll give a hint as to what the best unit in the game is, or best aging unit in the game is. But with being able to see super attacks, you're able to maneuver this guy much more easily nowadays. Initially, you would have to take a bit of a gamble, right? And pray that they wouldn't, you know, super attack first slot, first turn kind of thing, right? But because you have the ability to see where the super attacks are coming from, this allows him to be a lot better. Again, it is a little bit tricky. You will have to have that unit around and the effect up for you to be able to see and take advantage of it. But I think even without that, taking a little bit of a gamble, he's still really good. That 80% damage reduction is phenomenal.
Right, and you mentioned it, like, so when that's kind of where the difficulty of Dokkan comes in, right? It's like where you're just praying that you could find this, you get lucky with the super attack. I feel like that's half of the difficulty in the content, where it's just like, okay, can I avoid the super attacks? Because a lot of the units they make in the game can take normals pretty well. Like, there are some times where a unit that's really good can take like 10k for a normal, but just when your team with the 200% leader skill has 750,000 HP, who cares, right? Like, you're fine. And that super attack, though, will do 500, 600k. That'll do you in. And just being able to see where that 600k damage is, and then put a unit like Tech Khalifa there against the Pure Saiyan, so it's a guaranteed dodge, and then you just take no damage, and that almost makes them obsolete, right? So, you know, when you can take advantage of what this unit is doing, that being the what's it called? Just the damage reduction from the normals. It just makes life a lot easier because you can just, you know, you have the enemy's trump card and you just take it away. And that's what makes Super Vegito so good, because, you know, when you have those abilities around him, he is almost invincible. So that's why we said he is aged really well. Okay, so that was our A tier. Now this is when we get on to some of the best aging units. Not the best, but very close to being the best. Let's start with, we're gonna do 2 here just because they're basically the same thing. It's just different typings and stuff like that. But we are putting this slot for the AGL and the Tech EZAs for our Golden Frieza units. Basically, this was the same thing that we said with Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta that we said here that will apply here, where damage reduction is timeless. So the 80 and the 90% damage reduction is perfect. Can run them in ESBR, can run them in the red zone, can run them in the God event. They'll work. Even if they're not on a leader skill, it still works out just fine. And, you know, they've always just kind of been an ace. Now, you know, there is the HP restriction and stuff like that, but if you can kind of play smart, get lucky and stuff like that, they can be a slot 1 unit for you the whole time in an ESBR run, and you'll be just fine.
Yeah, I think, and this is the case of where we're seeing 3 different damage reduction types so far we've seen, right? We saw, you know, the STR Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta, which lasted 10 turns. Then we saw Super Vegito, which is only on the condition of normal attacks, and now we're seeing it on HP restriction. So it's 3 different ones. We placed them in 3 different tiers. But the biggest reason why we put Frieza in those tiers is because it's only an HP threshold. We can easily navigate around that with the use of an item. Of course, most people love to go on a no item basis, and even then I would feel like it's a little bit easier to manage because you can regenerate HP with orbs very easily, right? Whereas if you look at the normal attacks one that Super Vegito has, you're running the risk of getting caught out, like we said. And then, of course, in Super Saiyan 2 Vegeta's case, it'll run out after 10 turns, which doesn't make sense for him in long-term events, or long-run events, I should say. Here, you're going to be able to use them in every bit of any bit of content that Dokkan has to throw at you. Red Zone, IDBH, SBR, ESBR, whatever you want to do, these guys will be great for those events. So, yeah, I think for that alone makes these guys in S tier, and the reason why we place them higher than Super Vegito and SSJ3 Vegeta, period.
I think, you know, one thing you also got to bring up is like the bar. We're not setting the bar here as can they tank Red Zone Omega Super Attack, because not many units in the game can. Spoiler alert. Yeah, and it's like, I think it's just an unfair bar. I just think there's so much more to Dokkan than just Red Zone Omega. Now, obviously, you know, it does make a difference and it matters. I'm not going to tell you that it doesn't, but yeah, I mean, these guys are they just do everything defensively that you would probably want them to do. The HP restriction does suck, but it's good to have these Super Battle Road aces like this. They just, you know, they get the job done. So that's really all I think that we have to say about them. Damage reduction goes burr. That's always how it's going to be, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think that all things said and done, what we're looking at necessarily is just how usable they are. Yes, I absolutely agree with you in that, you know, at the end of the day, you can't really judge a unit on red zone only, in my opinion. And like you said, not a lot of units can survive that Omega Shenron attack or, you know, Broly super attacks and stuff like that. What we're looking at is, are they usable? And they are usable. That's the main thing. They are usable, they're runnable, they will let you clear the events, and they will help you in clearing these events. And that's about it, right? And they are old. That's also another factor we have to acknowledge, that these guys are 2+ years old basically at this point. So there you have it.
Yeah, so another EZA is coming up on the list, another Extreme Class EZA. I'm glad that we've had some Extreme Class love here. This is coming in the form of AGL Super 17. Now, this is another guy that offensively kind of does leave a bit to be desired, but defensively, he is still an ace. I ran him in my Omega Red Zone run, not the no-item run, but I did bring him. Same thing with AGL Super Vegito, actually, so there's your fun fact about him. But, yeah, so AGL Super 17, really good defensively, and his EZA is coming up on being about, I think it is or is just about to be 2 years old, so considering you're using a unit in the red zone that is almost 2 years old, I think speaks volumes to how good they have been.
Yeah, and it's another damage reduction unit. I think we've learned one thing from this video, is that damage reduction is pretty much king here. Again, he has aged tremendously, and especially with the recent release of Cell, he's just shot up even more because he's got that 200% leader skill under his belt, right? Which some of the other units don't still have. Like, I don't think the Golden Frieza still have a 200% lead yet, right? So,
no, not yet. Yeah, not even the new LR.
Exactly. So
yeah.
I think the fact that this guy is in this 200% leader skill, he's got that 70% damage reduction after he gets hit a couple of times. Yeah, he's really good. And he still has a good super attack effect as well, greatly raises attack and defense. So you can, if you want to build him up, but you don't want to get caught out first turn or first slot, right? You can put him in the second slot, let him build up a bit, and then bring him back into the first slot to be able to tank those attacks, right? So in all honesty, I think this is a great unit, aged really well, and he'll continue to age well, especially with the output of more and more Android units, I feel.
Yeah, AGL Cell coming around, like you said, was a huge deal for him. You know, a lot of the androids got better. Like even Tech Super 17, as much as a joke he is, like between like his GT Boss lead and not many GT Boss units, but you know, neither here nor there. He's going to continue to get better, and that is always good. Now, let's go ahead and finish up our S tier right before we go to our honorable mentions and our best of the best. We have the newest unit, and we consider not putting him on here, but ultimately, you know, he is a year and 3 months old, a little bit over that. So we're going to go ahead and throw him on here. Give it up for Legendary Super Saiyan Broly from Saiyan Day of 2021. He has a bit of a timeless passive in terms of his damage reduction and just the kind of the buffs that he gets from having pure hybrid Saiyans around. Just like he is like an automatic super. He can potentially quadruple super. Mine at 79% can quadruple super. He just has the stacking, the damage reduction. It's just, when you think of like a way you want to kind of counter an enemy, that's like Int Broly is a very good example of how you'd want to do that, just with how much he's doing when there's a pure hybrid Saiyan enemy, and that is most of the enemies in the game.
Yeah, the only weaknesses he realistically has, if we have to say a weakness, is probably his link set, right? And it's specifically 1 or 2 links in Berserker and Hardened Grudge, I guess, right? Is the only ones you would really be like, I don't know about that one, chief, kind of thing, right? Outside of that, you know, you would say he's really good. I know a lot of people were a little bit sour on him initially, right? Once again, I think it was primarily because of the link skills and his active skill condition and stuff like that. But even if you don't include that active skill condition, which I think you shouldn't, because it's mainly there for a offensive purpose and to, you know, eviscerate the enemy late on in the game, and I think that's absolutely fine. I think that that makes it even better, in my opinion, because you're gonna save it up for that last ditch attack, right? The last ditch attack against a final boss on a long run event. You want to kill him that turn itself. That can help you out, right? Especially with the attacks effective against all types, right? But him stacking his damage reduction as well, and like you said, he's got a timeless pass because of that pure Saiyans and hybrid Saiyans condition. You're gonna see that more often than not. Again, reiterating, the way Dokkan is, you're gonna see those units keep popping up consistently. So yeah, I have to put in Broly in S tier because of that. He is really good, and he's shown his worth in the red zone as well. You're seeing people use him consistently in the red zone, so absolutely, I think he's phenomenal there.
Yeah, I think one thing that you kind of mentioned there, like we were saying how the passive is timeless. It's like by the time that pure and hybrid Saiyan restriction, he's just not good enough. By the time that's a thing, he's going to be on the cusp of an easy A, right? Like, you know, you mentioned it earlier with like we don't want to bring up easy A's, but like if we're talking like 4 or 5 years down the line, like it's not like we're thinking it's going to be here tomorrow or anything like that. It's just like by the time he's no good, he'll be on his cusp of an easy A, in my opinion.
For sure.
Yeah. All right, so before we go ahead and get into our best spot for the best aging unit in Dokkan, let's go ahead and give you some honorable mentions. Now, this one we considered putting on the list, but we do think just kind of the way a celebration was done just kind of catered to him a little bit too much, and it didn't even really consider how he aged. He just instantly became like from, you know, good to just like phenomenal, and it wasn't really like an aging process. It was just like a complete revival, right? That was Tech God Goku. Now his Easy A is obviously phenomenal. If you guys don't know, he is basically the best linking partner for the 1A or 1B unit in the game, that being the Tech God duo. Wherever you want to put them is up to you, but with his damage reduction against movie bosses and stuff like that, he really is just insane. He doesn't take damage. One of the hardest stages in the game, Red Zone Broly, he's invincible. Yeah, he's just really good, but the problem, you know, that we mentioned was that the 7-year anniversary just kind of went all around with this movie theme with like the red zone and stuff like that, where this event where he was catered for just didn't exist in the first place. So it was like, where were you running this guy beforehand, right?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing we have to mention here as well is that we still think he would have been great before then in the events he would have been utilized in. But of course, I think his value shot up tremendously with that, with his post EZA passive edition of the Pure Saints, you know, thing as well.
That too.
That I think was a big factor as well. And then on top of that, like you said, the addition of the movie bosses Red Zone. So while it's a little bit retroactive, and it's one of the reasons why we put him in the honorable mention. that's you know, he would have still been great back in the day on against a movie boss's unit. The other reason why we were a little bit hesitant on putting him in is because his EZA is barely 6 months old, so it's not really aged yet, right?
Yeah.
Whereas we could have arguably said that, you know, pre his EZA, he aged. Like, the thing is, movie bosses wasn't being given enough enemies for us to be like, okay, he's going to be usable in a lot of content, right? Because you look at any of the legendary events, you're not going to be using God Q there because none of the enemies in that stage were movie bosses, right? Vegeta, GT Goku, the original Goku, none of them are GT bosses. IDBH, again, you'd have to wait against, you'd have to wait for a run against movie bosses. So that's the problem there. And then SBR, whatever teams he's on, you'd have to see if there are movie bosses enemies on those against in that category stage, I should say, for you to take him in. So he would have aged beforehand, but yeah, that's the reason why we kind of were like a little bit hesitant and why he's an honorable mention more so than part of this list.
Okay, so kind of branching off of what you said, Gale, you know, where we were deeming that he had aged, right? And I think one of the contributing factors to that was the fact that we had already had movie bosses SBR in the game, or movie heroes SBR in the game for well over like I don't even know how long. That stage, what, like 38, and that I mean, that was years old by the time the 7-year anniversary came around. So his kind of period of relevance was gone, and you know, it just kind of made it feel worthless to kind of put him on one of the best aging units when he just got like a revival rather than just a just like aged really well, right?
Yep, for sure. Agreed on that.
I know that kind of came out weird. It was like I was thinking about it, and then it didn't go.
It happens, bro. It happens. Dokkan ruins us all. Don't worry.
Yeah, that's the excuse.
Yep. So do we want to go into that final unit? The big
yeah,
one?
of course. We have we have one more honorable mention for us.
Oh, okay.
You remember? Our last honorable mention is going to be going to another unit that's unit restricted, or enemy restricted rather, and that is our boy Int Final Form Frieza. Int Final Form Frieza has a very nice condition where if he is up against a Goku family enemy, he has a guaranteed guard. Now, we all know how valuable guard is in the game we call Dokkan Battle, and Int Frieza is just another exhibit of that, right?
Yes. In Frieza is a little bit of an odd one for us to place here, and especially because, you know, it's very one-dimensional, right? I think we could have probably added a lot more here in this list, but I feel like just because of how powerful guard is and just generally, you know, his damage reduction as well, the moment they keep, and because of how common Goku family enemies are, you know, and especially in future events, if they keep adding them more and more, if we ever get a super class variant of the Red Zone, the moment we get a super class variant of the Red Zone, this guy's going to be a beast, honestly, for a lot of those stages. Whichever features a Goku, Gohan, or Goten, for example, or a Bardock even. So, in all honesty, this is the reason why we put him as an honorable mention, is because some of the events that he would have been really good in have aged a bit. They're older events. We're done and dusted with them. A lot of people have cleared the missions or whatever for those stages, but you know, the more IDVHs we get, a potential superclass Red Zone, whatever it may be, this guy's going to become a key factor in those places.
Right. I mean, you said it best. Like, there is a guarantee that if there is a superclass Red Zone, there's going to be a lot of Goku on it. So, yeah, you know, if it's like the superclass
a Goku family.
Goku family, right?
Because, yeah, so Gohan, Goten, Goku, Bardock, you've got 4 options right there for superclass enemies, and he'll be great against every single one of them.
You know, it's funny enough, it's just funny that you mentioned, it's like, what if they do, like, even, like, in the unit that the other honorable mention could probably be really good in there, because we'll probably see a bunch of pure Saiyans in there as well, right? So, you know, there's even more potential to see just a bunch of different options of superclass units. So, you know, these two you're really going to notice are just like, they are going to age really well, I think, even in the future. All right, so now that we have talked about everything on our list from the B tier to the S tier, and we've also mentioned some of our honorable mentions, let's go ahead and finish this up with the best aging unit in Dokkan Battle in our opinion. It should not come as a surprise to many of you. The guard is king, and this guy has kind of altered how they look at units going forward with this mechanic. Give it up for Tech Ultimate Gohan. Just the hybrid Saiyan king, someone that has really impacted the game in a way that hinders other units because they have become so scared of what they've given this Gohan. What do you think, Gil?
Yeah, I mean, you look at recent units such as STR Gohan, they've got a condition that they have to be hit 6 times. Well, obviously, when you exchange it to Gohan, you have to be hit 6 times to get that permanent guard off. STR Ultimate Gohan ZZA, it has a chance-based guard, and only then will the guard activate permanently, but only for 4 turns, and then so that's not technically even permanent, semi-permanent, arguably you could say. And then today we obviously got the new release of the Trunks and Vegeta LR. We are recording it on the day of the info dropping, and we found out that they get guaranteed guard for the first 5 turns, but then after that they are only guaranteed guard in the first slot. So while that's still good, of course, right, it's not as universal as Tech Gohan is, right? And it definitely feels like they have altered the way guard is approached with a lot of recent units, because this guy is just so strong. You know, his greatly stacking attack and defense before he transforms, his ability to guard out all attacks, and then of course you can keep that defense when you transform into Ultimate Gohan, and then he obviously gets a little bit more stats. Doesn't keep the stacking, but yeah, I think it's so good. In all honesty, I'm surprised that because of this guy, they haven't introduced something similar to like what they did with Tech Caulifla, where, you know, enemies start disabling guard or something, right? Because that would change the game up so much. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I feel like Tech Caulifla and this Ultimate Gohan are similar in a way, where they have changed how they approach the design of units, right? Especially this guy more so, I feel, with the guard being... There hasn't been a unit like this Tech Ultimate Gohan in terms of guard.
Yeah, you kind of hit the nail on the head there with the... like, especially when you're talking about the new LR that just was released. I think what makes that a kind of what you said, like, it doesn't really matter that the guaranteed guard everywhere goes away. Just because, like, we always talk about how we want slot 1 units, right? And this Tech Gohan is the definition of a slot 1 unit. And they're just so scared to release those now, and it feels like every other unit is just a cookie cutter slot 2, have to super first. This isn't a video to talk about the new LR, but I do think that, you know, when you think about it, it's just that units like Tech Gohan just don't really exist that often, or don't come around that often, you know?
Exactly. Yeah, and I think the one reason why I was talking a little bit about that slot 1 thing with Trunks and Vegeta is that, sure, they you want to have a guarding unit in that first slot for sure, right? Because there are so many times where an enemy attacks before you attack, and a lot of units end up getting their defense on super or ultra super, right? But I also feel like one of the biggest advantages with Ultimate Gohan is that you can maneuver him around and place him in, like, say, the 2nd slot or the 3rd slot, and he's just usable in all the full rotation effectively, right? Whereas Trunks and Vegeta, right, if you don't have them in slot 1 and you have to put them in slot 2 or slot 3, or if, say, for example, Omega Shenron, he locks your units. What if he locks your Trunks and Vegeta in slot 2 or 3, where they lose that big advantage, right? So you have to think of it that way as well, right? It's like, oh, what are you gonna do then? Whereas Tech Gohan, you don't have to worry about that, because whatever slot he's in, he's fine, realistically speaking. So that's how I'm looking at it as well.
Yeah, I think you do make a good point. I just don't think that there are enough enemies in the game that do that certain thing, but you are 100% right that when it does happen, it is a pain. So yeah, I tend to agree with what you said there. So I don't have any more closing thoughts. Tech Gohan, you know, he does his thing. We all know that, you know, a unit aging well in this game is just, it's always nice. And, you know, went ahead and laid out 10 here for you today.
Yes, sir. I think I'm pretty happy with this list. Of course, I feel like there is a small chance we might have missed one unit, you know, like that's just slipped from our head. It's very likely, because again, there's just so many units in Dokkan, right? And but I feel like these are units we consistently use, Vilify and I, that is, right? We consistently use them in certain events, certain stages, and I think we have kind of nailed on this being our go-to units, I would say.
Yeah, and, you know, also, you know, feel free to let us know what units that we missed in the comment section, because, you know, this isn't an objective list or anything. This is just, you know, 10 units that we thought aged really well, and obviously there's a ton of units that have aged really well. There's a ton of units that haven't aged well, and that's just the nature of the game. But, you know, I think that's all we got for you here today. If you always want to keep up with what we are doing here, you can keep it locked in here on 5-9 Mobile. But if you want to check out more of us, Gale, where can we find you?
Of course, you can find me over on Twitch, Gale Ride. It's literally the same name as my everywhere else, pretty much. And of course, if you want to see me talk about stuff like Dokkan, Genshin, FGO, whatever it may be, follow me on Twitter, GaleRiot7. Thank you so much for having me on, Vilify. I always appreciate recording with you.
Yeah, and if you want to see more of me, you can find me on YouTube at Vilify, and you can find me on Twitter at Vilify. It is very similar to what you see here on the 5-9 Gaming mobile channel. I do mostly Dokkan content, but I am looking to branch out and get more into some other anime stuff as well as other games. But, you know, for now, it's mainly just Dokkan things. So that's all we got for you today. Do not forget to leave a like if you did enjoy. Subscribe to the 5-9 mobile channel so you don't miss out on any of the great content that we post here, and turn on notifications so, again, you do not miss out. Thank you guys for watching. Have a great day.